Ibrahim Traore's incredible rise to become Burkina Faso's leader has arguably been one of the past year's most well-documented political developments. The 34-year-old military captain and the world's youngest leader is on a mission to prove that he is much more than a revolutionary poster boy, and his journey is worth following. Since becoming interim president of the West African country, President Traoré has been charged with steadying the sail of a country grappling with intense waves of insurgency and political turmoil. His rule was never going to be smooth sailing, but the enigmatic leader has hit the ground running in what will surely be a long walk to set the country on the right path. President Traoré's over one-year tenure as the interim president of Burkina Faso has brought along with it some notable new developments and changes. There is widespread optimism among the population that his term will yield sufficient national gains and inspire hope in a country that desperately needs it. The 34-year-old military captain took over power in a September 2022 military coup that ousted another military-installed ruler, former President Paul-Henri Sandaogo. Since then, Traoré has been at the forefront of efforts to lead the country past a forgettable chapter that has left a trail of unrest and uncertainty. On this note, we welcome you to today's episode of our video series, People's Journal, where we document and bring you some of the most important stories from around the world. Please take out time to like this video and subscribe to our channel to be notified whenever we post a new video. To observers from elsewhere around the world, Ibrahim Traore is the enigmatic, military attire donning 34-year-old leader of Burkina Faso. His rise to the Burkina Faso presidency has provoked mixed reactions worldwide. While some say his rise has been meteoric, others say the one-time United Nations peacekeeping soldier always had it coming for him. Before Traoré's rise to the presidency, not much was known about him, beyond that he was a committed soldier and former United Nations peacekeeper. Now that he is president, more information about him has come to light, and we'll shed more light on his profile next. We'll take a brief look into the profile of the Burkina Faso interim president, Ibrahim Traore, and then discuss his bid to shape the political and economic future of his country. Ibrahim Traore was born in 1988 in Kira Bondakui province to Mr. and Mrs. Traore. Not much is known of his growing up years other than his primary education at a Bondakui school. He went to Bobo Dioulasso for high school and proceeded to the University of Ouagadougou to obtain a geology degree with honors. Ibrahim Traore's time at the university helped him hone his leadership skills. He was a prominent member of the university's Association of Muslim Students and the Association Nationale des Étudiants du Burkina, ANEB, a group that held Marxist views. Traoré became a delegate under ENIB and was heavily involved in resolving disputes that affected his classmates. Traoré's next stop after university was the Georges Namoano Military Academy, where he started his journey into the Burkina Faso army around 2009. He later spent some time in Morocco, where he received anti-aircraft training prior to his transfer to Kaya, north of Burkina Faso, where he was to be deployed in an infantry unit. Ibrahim Traore distinguished himself while serving as a junior officer in the army, and he would soon climb the ranks to lieutenant in 2014. That same year, Ibrahim linked up with the United Nations peacekeeping delegation to prosecute the Malian War. His valiant efforts during the war, especially his exploits in the Tombouctou region when facing rebel attacks, stood out and earned him recognition. This experience was the precursor to several other counterinsurgency operations in which the young Traore was later involved. In his home country, Traore helped push back the jihadist uprising threatening to boil over. He later teamed up with troops fighting insurgents in Dilbo around 2019 and would be involved in a few other offensives against armed Islamic insurgents that mostly raged on in the country's northern parts. Ibrahim Traore's experience fighting various battles in the Burkina Faso army opened his eyes to many ills in the country. He saw firsthand the lack of morale in an army that lacked the equipment needed to fight a violent enemy. Traore also knew that the country's ruling class was involved in massive corruption, which probably informed his subsequent actions. From the 22nd to the 24th of January 2022, Ibrahim Traore joined a group of officers under the umbrella of the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration Group to unseat President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore. The group was led by Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, a military officer who officially assumed power as interim president on February 16, 2022. Paul Henri's presidency was plagued by the same Islamic jihadist insurgency that troubled his predecessor. After spending several months without genuine progress in the raging war, people grew increasingly frustrated and restless, and then Ibrahim Traore had to step in. In September 2022, Ibrahim Traore teamed up with the renowned Cobra Squad to execute a coup that removed President Damiba from office. His execution of the coup was well planned and well carried out, and he would soon announce himself as the new leader of the patriotic movement for safeguard and restoration. Ibrahim Traore became the interim president of Burkina Faso on October 6th, and he took the role under the title Head of State, Supreme Head of the Armed Forces. He has continued to wear his military uniform in every public appearance, and his red beret typifies the revolutionary persona that was once worn with great pride by the country's national icon, the late Thomas Sankara. President Traore maintains a low profile, and not much is known of his personal life other than that he is married with 2 kids. What we know, however, is that President Traore has gone about his business as the country's leader with great zeal and investment. Since becoming president, Ibrahim Traore has embarked on the long journey to restoring the peace of Burkina Faso, his primary objective. He has made some big moves during his presidency, notably ejecting French forces helping in the fight against Islamic insurgents in a bid to explore new strategies. Since then, he has welcomed partnerships with Russia, Turkey, and has entertained the idea of a power bloc of fellow military-ruled countries, Mali and Niger. These big moves offer us a look into the direction of Ibrahim Traore's presidency. His daring yet measured approach to his rule is positioned to set Burkina Faso on the path of national repair, rehabilitation, and recovery. Next, we'll discuss some of the gains President Traore is steadily making in his country. Number 1. He is making moves to curtail the security situation. The activities of Islamic jihadists in the Sahel and across a large part of Burkina Faso remain the country's biggest challenge, and President Traore has risen to the challenge. He started by overseeing a massive recruitment of volunteer fighters in the country's top civilian auxiliary to the army, the Volunteer for the Defense of the Homeland, VDP. He has also spent heavily buying military equipment, drones, helicopters, and other things to help the country's war efforts. He didn't stop there. After cutting ties with French forces, President Traore has enlisted the help of countries like Russia, Iran, and Venezuela in the fight against jihadists. Back home and across the Sahel, President Traore has extended an arm to fellow military-ruled neighbors, Mali and Niger, to form an alliance for collective defense and mutual assistance. While the war rages around parts of the country, President Traore is making concerted efforts to restore sanity and peace. His frequent morale-boosting trips to the front line will surely motivate the army, that and the promise of better welfare and military support. One thing is sure, President Traore has made winning the war against the ISIS and Al-Qaeda-backed jihadists his priority, and the early signs show that he is steering the country's resistance efforts on the right track. Number 2. He is addressing the issue of corruption. Corruption in the corridors of power has always been a big problem in Burkina Faso, and President Traore knows too well about it. Since becoming president, Traore has embarked on a journey to clean up the nation's economic coffers and is making steady progress. Traore started by freezing the bank accounts of suspected former government officials. He then set them up to be investigated for their involvement in the financial recklessness that threatened to ruin the country. Since then, he has introduced critical reforms to the country's economic management affairs. President Traore has focused on managing the country's revenue generation activities, primarily from mineral resources like gold. He has also taken on a nationwide mission to recover the country's looted wealth from the previous governments. Admittedly, corruption has eaten deep into the political class's fabric, so President Traore's work is well cut out. It remains to be seen if he can intensify and sustain efforts to win the fight. Number 3. He has promised to return to democratic rule. On assuming office, President Traore drew out a 2-year timeline map for a return to democratic rule. He promised his office would facilitate efforts to restore constitutional order nationwide once the jihadists had been weakened or eliminated. Many people within and outside the country have expressed skepticism about his statement, but there's hope that Traore will make good on his promise. His plan involves a transition charter followed by general elections, and sources say movement to this effect is in place. The challenge facing this target is the war against Islamic insurgents. President Traore and others in his government say civilian rule will only be possible after the enemy within is defeated. It is hoped that the war will end soon, so the country can seamlessly transition to a better-run democratic process. Number 4. He is seeking to restore the country's foreign relations. As expected, Burkina Faso's international reputation suffered a big hit after the coups, and a string of bans from regional organizations like ECOWAS soon followed. Since assuming office as interim president, Traoré has embarked on a mission to resolve the country's lingering international relations issues and repair its image globally. Although President Traoré ordered French troops away from the country's fighting fields, he is still not ready to cut ties with the former colonial masters. Elsewhere, he's extending a hand of partnership to foreign nations like Russia, most notably to help in the war against Islamic fundamentalists. President Traoré has been seeking support for the supply of arms and ammunition to fight the war, and his efforts are yielding rewards, going by the recent results. He has also approached the United Nations to rally support, and his promise to restore democratic rule has caught the eye of ECOWAS. The long walk to normalcy lies ahead for President Traoré's Burkina Faso, and he has been making the right moves and stretching out his arms wider recently. Hopefully the country can regain some semblance of sanity soon, and the country's window and door to the world will be fully reopened. Number 5. He is getting humanitarian aid for the country. The war against Islamic insurgents in Burkina Faso has severely impacted the country, resulting in a humanitarian crisis for the most part. The threat of food insecurity is rife in Burkina Faso, while access to quality healthcare, education, and essential resources has also been affected. President Traoré's response to these challenges is to act within his capacity to manage the situation and look elsewhere for help when necessary. To tackle the problem of rising food costs and scarcity, he has commenced efforts to subsidize the cost of essential food supplies. His plea to Russia's president to help his country has also yielded results, and President Putin is now set to ship massive grain supplies at no cost to the country. On the humanitarian front, President Traoré has continued to welcome support from international aid agencies. International aid organizations like the USAID and the World Food Programme WFP are leading efforts to provide relief. The International Monetary Fund has, on its part, promised a multi-million-dollar bailout fund for the country. In addition, President Traoré is also seeking substantial debt relief from the country's former colonial master, France. All of these efforts and campaigns feature as part of the concerted efforts to ease the living conditions of a people that the war has seriously impacted. President Ibrahim Traore has signaled his intent to open up the country once the war is significantly over, and there's no doubt that this country will need all the help then as it does now to forge ahead. Number 6. He is slowly opening up the country. In the wake of the first coup and the threat of possible unrest, residents of Burkina Faso had to deal with the clampdown on their freedom of assembly. The rising insecurity levels also meant the ban on public gatherings made sense. The people had to adjust to the seeming restrictions that followed suddenly. President Traoré has lifted all such embargoes since he assumed office. The people can now hold rallies and move more freely around the country. Other than that, President Traoré plans to prepare the country for a future outside the carnage caused by war. His most recent parley with Russia's President Putin on the sideline of the Russia-Africa summit is reaping the reward, and the country now plans to build a nuclear facility in Burkina Faso to help its electrification efforts. President Traoré says the agreement and execution of the deal will help to ease the country's perennial power problems by 2030, and the move marks his resolve to leave a better Burkina Faso when he eventually leaves office. Another frontier that the 34-year-old president is exploring is the BRICS alliance, a cohort of emerging markets that seeks economic and political ties between member countries, including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In July 2022, President Traoré offered to help the BRICS Strategic Projects team build an office in his country. The group also gave him a medal for his bravery and efforts in leading the nation during this time. The massive potential that lies in any partnership with the BRICS group will portend immense future economic rewards for Burkina Faso. It is a pointer to President Traoré's willingness to open up the country and provide a path to her sustenance and progress. Number 7. He is raising the country's spirits. Before the first coup that brought in Damiba, Burkina Faso and its citizens looked at the dire prospects ahead, with Islamic jihadists marching on across the country's north and gaining even further inroads elsewhere. As a result, the national outlook was bleak, and the country's markets, schools, and places of worship echoed these sentiments. The clamour for change meant that the first coup was greeted with widespread celebration, but as the problems seemed to remain, the national mood changed, and people were gradually returning to their shells until the young Traoré stepped up and showed the will to make drastic changes. For a nation that has seen 2 coups and is severely affected by the war against Islamic jihadists, Burkina Faso's citizens still go about their daily lives with more hope and vim than resignation and fear. Many observers say that this is thanks to the fact that President Traoré inspires a certain type of hope for the country's citizens. While many of the problems that plagued previous administrations are still around, President Traoré's first moves in office show that he is willing to change the game, and the people seem to appreciate this. Burkina Faso's enigmatic ruler is a national icon, and his calm demeanor and inspired speeches portray a man who knows his way. President Traoré has also visited a few military units on the front line of the war, in what has mainly been seen as a morale-boosting campaign. Dressed in his full military regalia at all times, he gives off the airs of a man who means business. Although the war against the ISIL and Al-Qaeda-backed insurgents continues to threaten the country's peace, the people of Burkina Faso seem to be holding out for better prospects. Ibrahim Traoré's life has been a story of courage, grit, and responsibility. He has leveraged his experiences in the university and the army to build the resolve and grit that has seen him take up the highest office in the land at the remarkably young age of 34. While his age has naturally raised questions everywhere, Traoré has consistently shown that he is unfazed by any challenge, regardless of its size, and none so much as the leader of a country witnessing a jihad-inspired war. President Traoré's job as the interim president of Burkina Faso is a challenging task. His rise to power has been swift and no less eventful, and his national responsibilities and duty to the troubled country is a significant burden, even for a 34-year-old captain. Burkina Faso continues to battle a horde of enemies inside the country, and a few of them are much closer home than imagined. The presidency even recently reported that it had quashed an intending coup and made some arrests. These challenges have made his short tenure very eventful, even though he and millions of other Burkinabes would have loved to see less action. To his credit, President Traoré has risen to the occasion with a series of actions and decisions, and this video explores this perspective. This is where we draw the curtains on another exciting episode of our channel, People's Journals. We hope you enjoyed watching this video and would like for you to tap the like and subscribe buttons on your screen. This is so that you can take advantage of the videos we'll post on subsequent editions of the show. Thanks for watching our video, and we hope to see you next time.